The blue check was supposed to be harmless. That was the point of it. It was thin paper, cheap as a napkin, printed in pale blue ink that smeared if touched with wet fingers. At Rossi's midnight diner, every check looked the same. Table number at the top, 3 narrow lines for coffee, pie, and whatever a tired person could still afford after rent. Nora Vale had written thousands of them. She knew the difference between lonely paper and dangerous paper. Lonely paper carried coins, apology tips, or coffee rings from people who sat too long because home felt worse than a cracked red booth. Dangerous paper carried numbers that did not belong. Check 417 did not belong. Nora stood at the back counter with the coffee pot warming her right hand and the wrong blue check under her left thumb. Her own checkbook had gone from 391 to 416 that night. She had torn 416 for the overnight mechanic at booth 2, a man who ordered scrambled eggs with no salt and left 2 quarters under the cup. The next slip should have been 417. But 417 had already been torn out. Now it sat beside the register with Table 9 written in the corner. Table 9 was the back booth. Table 9 faced the front door. Table 9 gave a straight line to the exit. Nora looked toward the front windows just as 3 black SUVs stopped outside Rossi's. Not parked. Stopped. Men in black suits stepped out first, scanning the street, the awning, the alley, the windows, and every set of hands visible under the diner's yellow lights. They did not posture. They worked. Everyone in Rossi's understood the difference. Then Vittorio Greco entered. 42. Italian-American. Clean-shaven. Dark hair brushed back. Black 3-piece suit. Long black overcoat. Black leather gloves. Heavy signet ring. He moved like the room had agreed to behave. He did not look like a CEO. He looked like the man CEOs called when money failed. Every fork in the diner slowed. Rossi's was built for truckers, nurses, tired cops, broke students, and old men who ordered toast for free refills. Black and white tile. Split red vinyl. A slow clock above the pie case. Vittorio walked through all that cheap light without touching any of it. Stop staring. Felix was the night manager, which meant he owned nothing and punished everyone for noticing. He was narrow, red around the mouth, and cruel in the dull daily way of men who thought scheduling was power. I was counting checks, Nora said. Paper will not save you. Sometimes paper is the only thing that tells the truth in here. Felix's eyes flicked to the SUVs. In a diner, yes. You want privacy. Pick a restaurant with cloth napkins and a hostess paid to lie. Here you get coffee, pie, and a waitress who hears everything because the ceiling fan squeaks over table 6. For 1 second, something almost moved at the corner of his mouth. Then his gaze dropped to her hand. The blue check. Nora placed it beside his coffee. Not flat. Angled. Only he could read the marker line she had written across the back. Don't leave yet. The bodyguard behind him stepped forward. What did you give him? His check. He did not ask for it. Men who wait until they need a bill usually miss the important part. The bodyguard reached for the paper. Vittorio placed 2 gloved fingers on the blue check. The bodyguard froze. So did the other 2. The whole diner seemed to freeze with them. Vittorio read the words once. Nora watched his face. Not fear, not surprise. Men like him were too trained for either. But the air around him changed. The schedule wrapped around him like iron loosened by one breath. Nora Vale, he said, reading her name tag again. Do you usually give orders to strangers? Only when they are about to walk into a lie. Felix hurried over. Mr. Greco, I apologize. She is overtired. We are short-staffed. Stop talking, Vittorio said. Felix stopped. Nora almost respected how quickly he learned. Vittorio turned the check with 1 finger. What lie? Nora pointed at the top corner. This check was torn from my book before you came in. Table 9 was written before you sat down. Whoever made it knew where Felix would put you. Felix laughed too loudly. We prepare checks early for important guests. No, you don't, Nora said. You make me reuse pencil stubs so paper costs stay under $18 a week. Milo snorted behind the pie case and covered it with his straw. Nora kept her eyes on Vittorio. If you leave now, you take the direct line from this booth to the front door. You pass the chrome napkin dispenser on table 6, the one angled toward the window. One bodyguard glanced at the dispenser. Felix scoffed. A napkin dispenser? It has been turned 3 times tonight, Nora said. Rossi's dispensers stick to sugar glaze on the tables. Nobody turns them unless they are wiping under them. And Felix has not wiped anything since Easter. The mechanic at booth 2 coughed into his coffee. Vittorio did not look away from Nora. And if I stay? Then whoever expected you to cross that line has to make a new mistake. Silence settled hard. Nora felt Felix's hatred at her back, the bodyguard's suspicion at her sides, and the tremor in her left knee from standing too long on a double shift. She also felt Milo watching her like she had pulled the moon closer with one blue paper check. Vittorio lifted his coffee, drank once, and set the cup down. Then I am not leaving yet. Felix went pale. That was how Nora knew she was right. Vittorio spoke without raising his voice. Lock the front without making a scene. No one touches table 6. No one leaves through the alley, and find out why my driver is parked under a street lamp he never uses. The guards moved. Quietly. Efficiently. Not like security. Like men who had practiced the end of a room. Felix backed toward the kitchen. Nora stepped in front of him. She was 5'5" in diner shoes with one cracked sole and a coffee stain near her apron pocket. Felix had shoved her, mocked her, cut her hours, and once told a customer she was too stubborn to promote, because stubborn women aged badly. Tonight she held out one hand. Where are you going? To call the police. With the phone in the office drawer under the register reports, Felix blinked. The office is behind the kitchen, Nora said. The alley door is behind the office. Mr. Greco just said no one leaves through the alley. Vittorio's eyes moved to Felix. The manager stopped breathing like an honest man. You cannot keep me here, Felix said. Nora tilted her head. You told me this morning I could not leave until the syrup delivery was logged, the freezer inventory was corrected, and booth 4 stopped wobbling. I am returning the management style. Someone at the counter made a sound that might have been a laugh if fear had not sat on it. Vittorio rose. The diner seemed to shrink around him. Nora did not step back. Sensible people would have. Sensible had never paid rent, protected Milo, or kept a wrong check from the wrong man. Vittorio picked up the blue check and folded it once. Neat. Exact. Miss Vale, he said. Sit down. Felix's mouth twitched in triumph. Nora looked at the mafia boss. No. One bodyguard inhaled. Vittorio's face did not change. No? No. Because you need me standing. If I sit, Felix relaxes. If Felix relaxes, he remembers which lie he is supposed to tell. Keep him uncomfortable. The bodyguard near the door looked personally offended. Vittorio kept looking at Nora. You are very certain for a woman holding diner paper. I am certain because diner paper is my job. Nora pointed to the register. Your people see faces. I see patterns. Table 9 never gets a check before coffee because the lamp flickers and customers move away. Check 417 was missing before you arrived. The napkin dispenser at table 6 is angled toward the front window, not the customer. And your driver keeps tapping his left pocket every 12 seconds. You watched my driver? I watch everyone who blocks my windows. Why? Because when men arrive in black cars, women in diners pay attention. The answer landed harder than Nora expected. Vittorio's eyes sharpened, but not at her. At the world that had taught her that. Felix tried to edge around her. Nora moved her foot half an inch. He stopped. Vittorio slipped the folded blue check into the inside pocket of his coat. Marcel. The broad guard behind him answered, Yes, boss. Bring the driver in through the front. And if he refuses? Then he is not the driver. Marcel left without another word. Nora heard the front door open and the cold night breathe in. Vittorio turned back to her. Who owns this diner? Legally? A holding company that sends letters with no phone number. Practically? Felix thinks he does. And you? I know where the spoons go. Again, that almost smile. This time, Nora saw enough to know it was not softness. It was interest. Dangerous men became most dangerous when interested. She lifted the coffee pot. Refill? You are offering coffee during a possible trap? You said you were not leaving yet. I do not abandon a table. For the first time since he entered, Vittorio looked away first. He looked down at his cup. Black. Nora poured. Her hand did not shake until she turned back toward the counter. Milo saw it. The boy slid off his stool, walked 3 safe steps, and held up the looped straw. Moon Captain says breathe, he whispered. Nora crouched just enough to meet his eyes without blocking the room. Moon Captain needs to stay in orbit. I know. Behind the pie case. No hero stuff. Milo nodded solemnly. That is your job. Nora wanted to smile. She did not have time. Marcel came back with the driver. The man wore Greco-black. He had the right cap, the right coat, and the wrong heartbeat. Nora could see it in the way his throat moved before his eyes did. Real drivers watched roads. This one watched reactions. Vittorio sat again in booth 9. He did not wave the man forward. He waited until the man arrived at the end of the table. Name, Vittorio said. Angelo Ricci, sir. Nora looked at his shoes. Polished. Too polished for a driver who had supposedly stood at a slushy curb for 20 minutes. My regular driver has a burn on his left wrist, Vittorio said. He called sick. My regular driver would have called Marcel. He said there was no time. There is always time to inform the man guarding my door. Angelo swallowed. Felix said, maybe this is all a misunderstanding. Drivers switch. Waitresses imagine things. Paper gets misplaced. Nora reached behind her and lifted the stack of paid checks from the receipt spike. Then you will not mind if I look at tonight's closed orders. Felix lunged. He caught himself before anyone could call it lunging, but not before everyone saw the instinct. Vittorio's signet ring tapped once against his coffee cup. The room obeyed the tiny sound. You will mind, Vittorio said. Felix's face shone with sweat. This is my private business. Not tonight. Nora flipped through the checks. Burger, coffee, pie, eggs, soup. All normal. Then she found 3 blue slips in Felix's block letters. Table 6. No food. No server name. Only times. 1:10. 1:25. 1:40. She laid them beside Vittorio's cup. Signal checks, she said. Felix barked a laugh. Listen to yourself. At 1:10, your fake driver parked in front of the laundromat. At 1:25, he moved to the hydrant. At 1:40, he moved under the street lamp. Every time he moved, Felix printed a no-sale check for table 6. Vittorio looked from the slips to the chrome napkin dispenser, angled toward the window. Mirror, he said. Nora nodded. The dispenser catches the kitchen light. From outside, someone can see when it turns. Check print, dispenser turn, driver moves. Milo whispered, like spaceship signals. No one corrected him. Vittorio looked at the boy for the first time. Milo stood behind the pie case, safe under the yellow light, placemat rocket clutched in both hands. Nora stepped slightly between them out of instinct. Vittorio saw it. He did not seem offended. Is he yours? He asked. No. But he is in my diner. That is enough? It is for me. Vittorio's gaze stayed on her for one long second. For me as well, he said. Nora had not expected that. She could handle threats. Agreement from a mafia boss felt like stepping onto ice and hearing it hold. Marcel searched Angelo with professional calm. No gun. No knife. Nothing that made the diner scream. Only a folded scrap from the inside coat pocket. Marcel read it and handed it to Vittorio. Nora could see enough. Both 9. Front exit. After check. Anger moved through her stomach, cold and clean. They had used her diner. Her checks. Her tables. Her cheap blue paper. They had moved pieces around people who cleaned syrup off counters and bent straws for children. Vittorio folded the note back into a square. Who gave you this? Angelo said nothing. Felix said too much. I do not know him. Vittorio turned his head slowly. I did not ask you. Felix, shut up. Nora set down the receipt stack. He is scared of Felix. Angelo's eyes flicked to her. Not you, she told Vittorio. Felix. He looked at Felix when Marcel found the note. Vittorio considered her. You read people as well as paper. People leave marks too. And what mark do I leave? The question should have frightened her. It did not. Nora looked past the black suit, the ring, and the men waiting for his smallest command. You make everyone decide who they are faster than they wanted to. The diner went quiet in a different way. Vittorio's face gave away nothing, but his fingers stopped on the folded note. For a breath, he was not the room's verdict. He was a man who had heard a truth and disliked how well it fit. Then the moment passed. Felix Marrow, Vittorio said. Felix flinched at the sound of his full name. Who bought your loyalty? I do not know what you mean. Nora reached for the register drawer. Felix moved. Marcel moved faster. He did not hurt Felix. He simply placed one hand on the manager's shoulder and made gravity personal. Nora opened the drawer. Felix kept petty cash in a cigar box beneath the change tray. Tonight the box held 2 rubber-banded stacks of cash and a cream business card printed with a black crescent. Vittorio's eyes went colder. Calabro, Marcel said. Nora knew the name from late-night whispers. Eastocks. Old grudges. Men who smiled too much. A son who wanted Greco routes and had been told no in a language that did not invite negotiation. You sold a diner full of civilians to Calabro for 2 stacks of 20s, Vittorio said. Felix's voice cracked. I did not know what they planned. You knew enough to put me at booth 9. They said it was business. Then you should have charged more, Nora said. Felix stared at her. She stared back. The old mechanic whispered, Lord have mercy. Vittorio looked at Nora, and that almost smile returned with something sharper behind it. You have a gift for making men regret speaking, only when they give me material, Miss Val. Yes? How long has he been printing false checks? Nora closed her eyes and saw the month backwards. Missing check numbers. Felix staying late on Tuesdays. The napkin dispenser at table 6 wiped clean when no other table was. Delivery men who came through the front but left by the alley. 3 weeks. Maybe 4. Tuesdays, Fridays, and rainy nights. Why rain? Less foot traffic. Headlights smear in the window. People look down when they run from cars to the door. Marcel nodded once. Useful. That was what the nod meant. Nora hated that she was useful to men like this. She hated more that being useful might save the room. Vittorio placed the false checks beside his original blue check. 4 pieces of paper. Enough to change the night. Miss Val, you will come with me to the back office. No. Felix made a strangled sound. Vittorio's brows lifted a fraction. You refuse me often. You ask badly often. That should have ended badly. In another room, with another man, maybe it would have. But Vittorio Greco looked at Nora Vale as if the refusal had not diminished him at all, as if power that shattered at the word no had never been power. Then explain here, he said. Nora slid into the booth across from him only after checking Milo, the customers, and both cooks were visible and safe. The blue checks lay between them. You are not afraid enough, Vittorio said. I am afraid exactly the right amount. Meaning? Enough to notice. Not enough to obey stupidly. His eyes rested on her hands. Who taught you? Bills. Bad managers. Men who think waitresses do not count unless we are smiling. And family? Nora did not owe him that, but the blue check lay between them like a door someone had already opened. My father ran a diner in Albany, she said. Small place. Green stools. He taught me every receipt was a witness. Then he got sick and witnesses do not pay hospital invoices. You lost it. We lost everything in alphabetical order. Car, diner, house, pride. Pride came last because my mother hid some under the mattress. Vittorio watched her without interruption. Powerful men liked to interrupt grief, because silence made them feel unemployed. He did not. Nora looked away first, annoyed by the respect of it. Marcel brought the register reports from the office and set the file box on the booth. Nora pulled it toward her before Vittorio could. One guard shifted. Vittorio said, "Let her." She opened the box. Register tapes. Delivery logs. Time cards. Copies of checks. Felix had kept too much because dishonest men often believed paperwork made theft respectable. False check numbers appeared in little clusters, like bruises on a ledger. Table 6, Table 9, Table 4. All tables with clear sightlines to the front windows. At the bottom of the box, Nora found a folded floor plan of Rossi's. Not the official one. This one had arrows. Front entrance. Kitchen pass. Alley door. Booth 9. A red X marked the spot where Vittorio would have crossed if he had left after receiving the check. Nora's mouth went dry. Vittorio reached for the paper. This time she let him. He studied it with no anger on his face. That was worse. Anger was human. This was a gate closing. "They were not going to shoot you," Nora said. Marcel looked at her. Vittorio did too. She tapped the red X. Too public. Too many cameras. They wanted a photograph. Of what? You leaving after a false check, with a fake driver and a Calibro signal in the system. Enough to make your people doubt you, or make someone else's people think you agreed to something. A betrayal photograph. Paper first. Picture second. Rumor third. Vittorio's jaw tightened. Not much. Enough. Felix burst out. She is making all of this up, because she wants attention. Nora did not turn. She was tired of turning for him. "Felix," she said, "if I wanted attention, I would have let your hair dye drip onto your collar and told Booth 3 it was gravy." The old mechanic choked. Milo giggled behind the pie case. Even Marcel's mouth moved. Felix's face went purple. "You smug little—" Vittorio's hand came down flat on the table. Not hard. Final. Felix stopped. "You will speak to her by name," Vittorio said. Nora's throat tightened before she could stop it. Not because she needed him to defend her. Because nobody in this diner had said that before. Felix looked at the floor. "Miss Vale." "No," Nora said. Vittorio's eyes came back to her. "Say Nora," she told Felix. "You use my name when you cut my hours. Use it when you apologize." Felix's mouth twisted. Nora waited. So did Vittorio. "Nora," Felix said, bitter as old coffee, "I apologize." For speaking disrespectfully. For grabbing my wrist. His eyes flashed. Marcel took one slow step closer. Felix swallowed. "For grabbing your wrist. And for using my checkbook to sell out a room full of people." "I did not." Vittorio did not move. Felix heard the silence. "For using your checkbook," he said. Nora nodded once. It was not fine. But it was recorded in the room now, and rooms remembered more than men thought. Vittorio took a black fountain pen from inside his coat. It was old, heavy, and expensive in a way that did not advertise. Black lacquer. Silver clip. A pen used to sign things that changed lives. He turned the original blue check over. On the blank side, beneath her warning, he wrote, "I listened." Then he pushed it across the table. Nora looked at the words. Vittorio Greco, who did not obey stranger warnings, who did not change his schedule, who had entered Rossi's like the night belonged to him, had written proof that he listened to a waitress with cracked shoes and a checkbook full of cheap blue paper. He capped the pen. "Show me where the lie begins," he said. The quiet turn did not feel quiet because the room was silent. It felt quiet because something inside Nora stopped bracing for impact. Not relaxing. Never that quickly. But adjusting. The way a table stopped wobbling when someone finally put the right folded napkin under the short leg. Nora touched the edge of the check. Her hand was steady again. "It begins before the check," she said. Vittorio's eyes sharpened. "Where?" "With the coffee delivery." Felix made a sound. Nora smiled without looking at him. That was the sound of being right. She spread the delivery logs over the table. Coffee beans, napkins, syrup, paper towels, sugar packets. Rossi survived on deliveries, no one respected until they failed to arrive. Nora knew them all because she carried most of them down the back hallway while Felix pretended inventory happened by prayer. 3 weeks ago, she said, we changed coffee suppliers. Why? Felix said the old one raised prices. Did they? No. I called because the new beans tasted like burnt cardboard, and I wanted someone to blame. Vittorio looked as if he had expected many things from the evening. Not a waitress calling suppliers over bad coffee. Old supplier never raised prices, Nora said. Felix canceled. New supplier delivers Tuesdays and Fridays. Rainy nights, Vittorio said. The delivery truck parks by the alley because the back dock floods. It blocks the pawn shop camera. Marcel took out his phone. Name, Vittorio said. Nora turned the receipt around. Crescent Supply. The black crescent on the business card suddenly made sense. Calab Rochelle, Marcel said. Nora sat back. Felix did not just sell your route. He let them build a delivery pattern around the diner. Felix whispered, I needed money. The words were small. Nora had expected denial or ugly insults. Mead was harder to hate because she knew it too well. For what? She asked. Felix rubbed one hand over his face. My daughter. Lawyer. She got mixed up with Calabro's nephew. I tried to get her out. They said they could make the charges go away if I helped with small things. Table numbers. Driver times. Nothing that would hurt anyone. There is no small betrayal, Vittorio said. Felix looked at him with sudden bitterness. Easy to say when people fear your name. Vittorio stood so slowly the bitterness died before he finished rising. People fear my name because men like Calabro use daughters, diners, and desperate fools as paper shields. Do not confuse my reputation with your excuse. Felix lowered his eyes. Nora felt the sharp turn in the room. This was where a worse story would make Vittorio cruel and call it justice. This was where Felix might become nothing but a mistake to erase. Nora placed one hand on the blue check. House rules, she said. Vittorio looked at her. The words hung between them. Nobody gets hurt in here. Your rule protects him? Vittorio asked. My rule protects the room. If Felix leaves in pieces, Milo remembers that. The cooks remember that. Every customer becomes part of a story they did not choose. He sold them. Then make him useful. You give mercy too easily. No. I give it with invoices. Vittorio stared. Nora turned to Felix. You know the delivery driver? Felix nodded. You know where he keeps the duplicate alley key? Another nod. You know who called you tonight? Felix's eyes moved toward the office. Nora looked at Vittorio. There is your useful. Vittorio was silent while every guard waited for him to decide whether her rule was a joke, an insult, or something new. At last he said, Marcel, take Mr. Marrow to the office. He will make one call. Speaker on. Miss Vale listens from here. From here? Marcel asked. Her diner. The words did not feel like a gift. They felt like a responsibility he had put in her hands because she had already been carrying it. Felix made the call with Marcel behind him. I did what you asked, Felix said on speaker. Greco is here. The reply was faint, male, amused. Then why is he not outside? Felix looked through the office window toward Nora. She lifted the blue check. The waitress caused a problem. The voice changed. Which waitress? Nora felt Vittorio's attention sharpen into something lethal. Nora Vale, Felix said. The silence on the phone lasted too long. Nora's skin prickled. Vittorio saw it. You know that silence? No. But she knew the shape of a name being recognized by someone who should not have it. The voice returned. Keep her there. Felix closed his eyes. Marcel looked at Vittorio. Vittorio took the phone and spoke toward the office speaker. Luca. A pause. Vittorio. You found a waitress to hide behind? Nora's shoulders tightened. Vittorio's voice stayed low. No. I found one who can count. Then count your exits. I only need one. You think paper saves you? Vittorio looked at Nora. She held his gaze. Tonight it did, he said. The phone clicked dead. For one breath, nobody moved. Then a brick came through the front window. It struck the tile between the entrance and table 3, wrapped in brown paper and tied with butcher string. Glass sprayed inward, but the guard by the door had already moved, coat flaring, blocking the nearest customer from the worst of it. Milo ducked behind the pie case exactly as Nora had told him. Safe. Scared, but safe. Nora moved before thought. She grabbed the towel from her apron, swept glass away from the old mechanic's shoes, and shouted, "Lights down, back line on, nobody near the window." The cooks obeyed. The diner shifted into practiced emergency, less mafia than service workers who had survived grease fires, blackouts, and customers fainting into soup. Vittorio's men covered exits. Vittorio picked up the brick. The brown paper had one word written on it. Waitress. Nora stared at it. Her name had become a target without being written. Vittorio's face changed then. Not enough for strangers. But Nora saw the precise moment the trap against him became an offense against her. "Marcel," he said. "Boss." Customers leave through the freezer corridor to the pharmacy. Pairs, quietly, names written down. Rides confirmed. Nora snapped. Not the laundry entrance. Marcel stopped. Vittorio looked at her. Why? Delivery truck blocks that camera on rainy nights. They know the angle. Freezer corridor opens behind the pharmacy. The pharmacist stays late on Fridays. Vittorio's eyes held hers. You heard her. Nora went to Milo. He crouched behind the pie case with his placemat rocket pressed to his chest. "Moon Captain," she said, keeping her voice level. "Status report. Window broke. Correct. I stayed in orbit. Also correct. Are they mad at you?" Nora crouched. Some people get mad when women read better than they lie. Milo absorbed that. That's dumb. Deeply. He gave her the looped straw. For breathing. Nora took it because refusing would hurt him. Vittorio watched from the broken window line. She stood before his expression could make anything in her soften. "You should go," she told him. No. That was not a suggestion. Nor was my answer. They threw that because of me. They threw that because of them. You know what I mean. Yes, he said. You mean you are trying to make yourself smaller so the room becomes safer. Do not. Do not what? Mistake shrinking for protection. The words went somewhere old. Somewhere under bills and bad managers and nights Nora had laughed off insults because rent needed paying more than pride needed feeding. She folded the straw in her fist. You do not get to give me life advice because you wrote 2 words on a check. I wrote 2 words because you wrote 3. Mine were better. They were. It disarmed her more than it should have. Marcel returned from moving customers. Pharmacy rear is clear. Customers are moving. Nora saw Milo's sister, Tessa, come from the kitchen with her dishwashing sleeves rolled down. Tessa grabbed Milo with shaking hands and looked toward Nora. Go with Marcel, Nora told her. Freezer corridor. Pharmacy. Do not stop for your jacket. Nora, I will bring it tomorrow. Milo ran to Nora first. Not far. Not dangerously. Just 3 quick steps across clean tile. He pressed the looped straw into her apron pocket. For later, he whispered. Then he went with his sister. Only when they disappeared did Nora breathe. Vittorio stood beside her. Not touching. Not crowding. Present. You protected him before yourself, he said. He is 10. That is your whole explanation? It is the only one needed. Vittorio looked toward Felix, who sat under Marcel's guard with his head in his hands. Calabro will come for 3 things now, he said. The evidence, your father's papers, and you. Nora turned. My father's papers? Luca knew your name before Felix gave it. Why? Nora looked at the wall of old photos beside the pie case. One of them showed the original Mr. Rossi shaking hands with a younger man she suddenly recognized from a picture in her mother's bedroom. Her father. Thomas Val, she said slowly. My father bought supplies from the original Rossi before we had our diner. They were friends. When Dad lost our place, Rossi offered help. Dad refused because he thought debt was a second illness. Your father kept ledgers? Vittorio asked. Receipts? He kept every receipt. Marcel looked at Vittorio. Albany books. Nora's skin cooled. What does that mean? Vittorio answered carefully. Your father may have recorded Calabro routes years ago. Maybe Greco routes too. He kept diner receipts. Sometimes diner owners write down more than they know. Nora remembered her father sorting invoices at the counter, reading glasses low on his nose. Receipts are witnesses, he had said. She had thought he meant inventory. Where are they? Vittorio asked. Storage. Queens. Unit 12B. Marcel reached for his phone. Nora pointed at him. No. He paused. You do not send men to my father's papers without me. Vittorio said. Calabro may already know. Then your men can guard the hallway while I open the lock. This is not negotiable. Everything is negotiable when the thing you need belongs to me. The bodyguards looked offended. Vittorio looked alive. You bargain in a broken diner with Calabro outside. You respect bargains. You dislike begging. And you will not beg. Ask badly and find out. For a second, the broken glass, the false checks, and Felix's betrayal receded under the sharp recognition between them. Then Nora turned back to the room. I close first. Vittorio stared. You cannot be serious. I have an open register, broken glass, spoiled pie, 2 cooks clocked out early, and a manager under guard. If I leave Rossi's like this, Felix's insurance company will blame the staff before sunrise. The window is broken because Calabro threw a brick. Can you prove that to an insurance adjuster named Linda who enjoys denying claims? Marcel muttered. Linda? Every insurance office has a Linda, Nora said. She wears cardigans and kills hope with forms. Vittorio rubbed 2 fingers over his brow, the first tired gesture she had seen from him. What do you need? Broom. Trash bags. Tape for the window. Register count. Photos of damage. The brick in a bag. Felix's keys. Someone to unplug the coffee urn. Vittorio looked at his men. You heard her. The Mafia went to work in a diner. Marcel held a dustpan while Nora swept glass. Another guard photographed the window because Nora said Linda would ask for proof. A third unplugged the coffee urn and looked offended when it hissed at him. Vittorio counted the register badly enough that Nora took the tray from his hands. You command men and cannot count change? I do not carry coins. That is not an achievement. She placed his gloved hand over 4 quarters. $1. He looked at her hand on his glove. She removed it. $1, he said. Good. We are all growing. When the register balanced, Vittorio placed his black fountain pen beside her clean blue check. Use this. For anything that should not smear. The offer felt too intimate because it was practical. A tool from his world placed beside her paper. She wrote, Window broken at 2:07 a.m. No staff injury. Customers evacuated safely. Blue check 417 retained as evidence. Then she stopped. I almost wrote your name. Why did you not? Because Linda will call this organized crime and deny the claim twice. Vittorio looked genuinely curious. You fear Linda more than Calabro? Linda has forms. Calabro has men. Men get tired. Forms reproduce. Marcel actually laughed, one sharp sound, then became stone again. At 2:46 a.m., Rossi's was taped, documented and cleaner than Felix had ever left it. Outside, the real driver, Carlo, stood beside the lead SUV with a bandage on his wrist and fury in his eyes. Found in the garage, Marcel said. Drugged, not badly hurt. Nora's shoulders loosened. You were worried for him, Vittorio said. Drivers are workers. You divide the world that way? Workers and people who make work harder. Where do I fall? Nora looked at the black SUVs, the taped window, the blue check in his coat pocket, and the fountain pen he had let her use. Undecided. Vittorio opened the rear door. Nora did not move. I sit by the door. Why? Because I do not climb into locked back seats with men who think questions are delays. Vittorio closed the rear door and opened the front passenger door. Nora got in. At the storage unit in Queens, Nora's lock stuck twice. Unit 12B smelled of dust, old cardboard, and the kind of grief that waited politely until a person touched the wrong box. Vittorio stood behind her with Marcel at the hall entrance. "If the papers are not there," she said, "you do not make the powerful man face." "I was not planning to. Men rarely plan faces." She opened the unit. Cardboard boxes. A broken diner stool from Albany. Her mother's sewing machine. A crate of mugs wrapped in newspaper. The brass bell from her father's door lay in a shoebox on top of a folded green apron. Nora stopped. The bell was smaller than she remembered. Vittorio saw it and did not speak. Good. She found the ledgers beneath the apron. Her father's handwriting covered the first book. Dates, delivery codes, payments, routes, initials that suddenly looked less like bookkeeping and more like testimony. Vittorio took one ledger only after Nora nodded. He read 3 pages, and his face hardened. "Your father kept records on Calabro shipments," he said, "and Greco payments from my uncle's time. Were they illegal?" Vittorio looked at her. Nora almost laughed. "Right? Mafia boss. Stupid question. Your father may have prevented worse things." Nora sat on the broken diner stool because her knees decided for her. It wobbled. Vittorio moved as if to steady it, then stopped when she lifted one hand. "I thought these were just reminders that we failed," she said. "They are reminders that he witnessed. Receipts are witnesses." Her father had told her that while she sorted sugar packets after school. "So tonight was about finding out whether I had the papers. Or removing you if you became inconvenient." The word removing landed heavily, and Vittorio did not soften it. "What now?" "I take copies. You keep originals in a bank vault. Better than your house." "I was not going to say my house." "You were thinking it. Briefly." He nodded to Marcel. "No one touches the mugs." Marcel said, "Yes, boss," as if protecting old coffee mugs were tactical law. They carried the ledgers out in 2 boxes. Nora carried the shoebox with the bell herself. Back at Rossi's before dawn, the taped window glowed gray. The street was quiet in the fragile hour when night workers went home and day workers had not surrendered yet. Nora unlocked the diner. The dead plastic chime above the door hung crooked, silent as Felix's conscience. She pulled over a chair. "Hold this." Vittorio held the chair steady while she climbed. "Do not look up my skirt. I am looking at the doorframe." "Good answer." She removed the dead chime with a screwdriver from the junk drawer. Vittorio handed up the brass bell. His fingers brushed hers once. Neither mentioned it. Nora fixed the bell over the door with 2 uneven screws and more determination than skill. When she stepped down, Vittorio opened the door. The bell gave one ugly, strangled clank. Nora's eyes burned. She hated that too. Vittorio stood in the doorway, black coat against dawn, mafia boss under a cheap brass bell that sounded like memory refusing to be elegant. "Awful," he said. Nora laughed once, quick and wet at the edges. "Honest. Honest," he agreed. The words settled between them. Not a promise. Not yet. But something paper could hold. At 7, Tessa arrived with Milo. The boy stopped under the bell. It clanked. He looked up. Delighted. "It sounds broken." "It sounds employed," Nora said. Tessa stared at the taped window, the swept floor, the men outside, and Vittorio Greco standing beside the pie case like a thunderstorm that had learned manners. "Are we open?" Nora looked at Vittorio. Instead of answering for her, he picked up a blue check and placed it in front of her. "Your rules." Nora wrote, "Open. Coffee first." Milo cheered. Vittorio read the check and sat in booth 9 because Nora pointed there. Not because it was safest. His guards took tables near the exits and looked deeply uncomfortable when she handed them menus. "Everybody orders," she said. Marcel looked at Vittorio for help. Vittorio opened his menu. "Everybody orders." At 8, Alessia Ward, counsel for Greco Holdings, arrived with a gray suit, a folder, and impatience sharp enough to slice bread. "Preliminary filings suggest the holding company behind Rossi's is exposed through fraud, coercion, tax irregularities, and improper vendor contracts, she said. Nora liked her more with every noun. How long? To make trouble? Today? To gain leverage? A week. To transfer clean ownership? Longer. To whom? Alessia glanced at Vittorio. Vittorio did not answer for Nora. Good. Not him, Nora said. Then we explore a worker trust, if feasible. Tessa dropped a spoon. Nora gripped the counter. Do not say things like that if you cannot do them. Alessia looked at her directly. I do not. Nora looked at Vittorio. This does not buy me. It does not make me yours. It does not erase what you are. No, he said to all three. Then why? Vittorio looked at the blue check on the counter. Because you told me not to leave yet. When I stayed, I saw what leaving had cost this place. Nora had no answer, so she poured coffee badly. Milo whispered, Moon Captain says breathe. Nora pointed the coffee pot at him. Moon Captain is on thin ice. By noon, the brick had become a story the diner controlled instead of one Calibro owned. Customers came for rumors, pie, and a look at Booth 9. Nora told every curious person the same thing. Coffee first. Vittorio stayed with Marcel, reading ledger copies and making calls too low for customers. His eyes kept finding Nora with plates and a pencil behind her ear. She pretended not to notice. She noticed everything. At 3, Serafina Calabro arrived in a cream coat with 2 silent men. A diner, she said. I expected better taste. Vittorio's voice was flat. I expected better aim from your son. Serafina's eyes moved to Nora. And this is the waitress. Nora picked up the coffee pot. Coffee? You think he will protect you because you amused him. Nora placed a clean blue check on the counter. No. I think people like you count on women like me believing protection only comes from powerful men. It does not. Sometimes it comes from knowing where the copies are. She wrote the time, Serafina's coat color, and the fact that 2 men came in without ordering. This goes to Alessia Ward, the health inspector, the insurance office, and Linda. Who is Linda? You do not want to find out. Vittorio stepped beside Nora. Not in front of her. She is under my protection because she prevented a war in a room full of civilians and gave terms I intend to honor. Nora slid the check forward. No one gets hurt in here. Serafina, read it. Paper changed rooms because paper could leave them. You cannot turn a diner into neutral ground with a waitress and a receipt. Nora smiled. Watch me. Serafina left without drinking the coffee. The bell clanked terribly over her head. Vittorio looked at the untouched mug. That was reckless. It was decaf. Nora. Fine. It was regular. Do you regret it? No. Then I will regret it for both of us. Nora dumped Serafina's coffee. If you insist on feeling things at me, make them useful. Vittorio's voice lowered. I can do that. At midnight, Rossi's finally emptied. Carlo had spent 4 hours in a borrowed white apron moving plates because Nora refused more men in black frightening customers. Milo had drawn him a space waiter badge, and Carlo wore it with grave dignity. The brass bell clanked for the last customer. Nora sat in booth 9 because her feet refused another minute. Vittorio slid into the opposite side with 2 coffees and placed the original blue check on the table. Her don't leave yet. His eye listened. I kept it, he said. Mafia boss's scrapbook now? Only evidence. Of what? The first time in years someone changed my mind before blood changed the room. Nora's fingers tightened around her coffee. That is a terrible sentence. It is an honest one. The bell is contagious. This time he let the smile live. Small, brief, real. What happens to Felix? He testifies, repays what he stole, and never manages people again. Alessia will look at his daughter's case. Because I asked? Yes. Nora nodded. Good. Outside, dawn was still far away. Inside, the taped window held, the bell waited, and Nora Vale felt the shape of a future she did not trust yet. Trust was not owed because a man listened once, but listening once could become a record. She reached across the table, took Vittorio's black fountain pen, and turned over a clean blue check. "What are you writing?" he asked. "House rules." "For me?" "For everyone," he watched her write. 1. Coffee first. 2. No one grabs staff. 3. No one uses diner paper to lie. 4. No one gets hurt in here. 5. If Nora says don't leave yet, listen. Vittorio, read the list. Rule 5 is specific. You inspired it. I am honored. You are warned. He took the pen when she offered it. At the bottom, he signed his name, Vittorio Greco, not with flourish, with weight. Nora looked at the signature. You understand this is a diner check. You taught me paper tells the truth. Only if people do. Then keep correcting me. The request was quiet. It did not ask her to become softer, leave the diner, ignore danger, or pretend a mafia boss became harmless because he had learned to sit still. It asked for what she already was: feisty, competent, warm enough to protect a room, and sharp enough to see the lie first. Nora folded the house rules check once and put it in her apron pocket beside Milo's looped straw. I charge extra for correction. Privacy costs extra. Correction costs extra. Your diner is expensive. Worth it. Vittorio looked around Rossi's at the taped window, the stubborn bell, and the woman who had turned a blue check into a line his enemies had to see. Yes, he said. It is. The bell over the door clanked in a draft. Ugly. Honest. Nora lifted her coffee. Vittorio lifted his. For one quiet minute, no one left. And that was how repair began.